Today we're going to be using this Audew jumper pack that I've got some videos on. Very good unit for starting up trucks and cars, in conjunction using that with these jumper cables. So this is a cable, 2-gauge cable with some clamp-ons, and then this is a 4-gauge 12-foot cable, and then this is it's a 6-gauge. So we're going to better understand when we put some of these thinner wired cables on a load with this booster pack over here, what kind of a voltage drop we get across the cables. Also, I want to mention on this 2-gauge handmade connector jumper situation, what I've got is I'm going to take that booster and I'm going to clip it onto the end of these guys right here, and in this case it's nice and short. This on some big diesel trucks you can clip that right onto your starter, so the maximum power can be delivered onto the starter, and in the hopes that you can get that started on your truck. Like I said, you could probably get a couple of these different booster packs on to the end of that, and then it's going to be connected right to your starter. So if you have difficulty spinning the starter with that, then good luck, with trying to, get something else. But anyway, these cables right here are nice, but they're so long that sometimes we're going to lose, maybe a volt across it or so when we put on a heavy starter load. So let's see what this turns out to be. So what we're going to test here is we got the booster pack, which is connected up to these jumper cables. I think these were the 6-gauge 12-foots, and we're going to take that voltage, and it's going to come over and be injected into this battery tester. And then also I've got a this meter here, and what I want to do is look at the maximum voltage drop that we're going to see across the positive cable. So I've got one voltage meter connector on the beginning of the red, and the other one going over here on the end of the 12-foot cable. So we're going to be able to see how much current is coming down to the load, and then also we'll see what the voltage drop is across the cable. And this booster pack right here, it a lot of times can put out, I think it's over 1,000 amps or so, but in this case, since the wire is going to be dropping some voltage, it's going to make the end point a lot weaker on the power delivery. So what I'm going to do is I will turn on the voltage on the booster pack. Okay, and you can see it's well over 16 volts, and then right now there's no voltage drop across the cable. So now I'll turn on the load switch right here, and notice what happens on the gauge. It's running at like 10 volts into the weak area. So let's shut that off. And all right, I had to rearrange the polarity on this multimeter because my max was going negative when I was putting the load on. So right now I'm going to turn on the booster pack power again on the 4-gauge cable. Okay, our battery pack's getting a little bit weaker, so we've got about 15.5 volts coming in to the load with no current, and then we're going to put on the load there, and we're a little over 10 volts. But notice in this case now we're seeing a 1.3 volts drop across the cable, which is quite a bit relative when you're sending in let's say 12 to 14 volts. You're losing 10% of your power going down to your starter with this long 12-foot 1.4 gauge cable. Let's retry the 6 gauge cable again now that I've got the setup working better. Alright, now we're back with the smaller 6 gauge cables, and we've got some different polarity on the multimeter here. So let's energize the booster pack here. And then we can see the voltage is about 15.5 volts. So when we hook up the load here on this skinnier cable, we're still getting a pretty good voltage there, going down to the battery tester. But notice the cable is 1.47 volts drop across the 12-foot 6 gauge cable. A little bit, I think the 4 gauge was 1.3 or something like that, so not too much noticeable difference between the 4 gauge and the 6 gauge. So lastly, let's test out the little short 2 gauge cable and see how much voltage drop we see across that one. Okay, so on this final test, we got the 2 gauge super short wire. Basically, you've got just your clips, and you're coming over here, and you're just clipping on the booster pack here, right there. Obviously, the booster pack's running lower on power because we've been doing some testing here. But interesting enough, the amount of voltage coming down to this battery tester with this short little cable 2 gauge wire is pretty impressive. And the voltage drop we're going to see, it's pretty minuscule. So this is why if you had one of these shorter cables here and you apply it right on your starter, you bypassing all the... Okay, so we're finally down to testing the last shorter cable here, and I'm going to show you what happens when I turn on the booster pack power, and then we're going to see how much voltage is on the battery tester and voltage drop across the cable. So let's go ahead and get that voltage turned on. Okay, so we got the power coming in. We're about 15.5 volts, and I'm going to apply the load switch here, and you can see we're way above 12 volts, and the current is way above 1,000 amps. So the voltage drop across that short low cable is 0.2 volts, and the other 6 gauge and 4 gauge 12 footers were about 1.34 volts. So you're getting about 1.5 volts of extra power at 1,000 plus amps. So when you have, let's say, a big diesel truck and you're trying to crank it over with the starter and it's not working too well, by getting I just made these shorter cables here. So I bought these pre-made cables and just bolted on this wire onto these clamps that I got off of Amazon. And then also on this other end here, you can even hook up lead acid battery if you did want to put it underneath your truck and to try to start your engine that way as well. But with this booster pack here, you could get a couple of these booster packs clipped onto this end of the cable, and amplifying the possibilities of starting any heavy duty trucks that have major issues with the cold weather and things of that nature. So hopefully you like this testing that I did here, and you can hopefully use that for your major power issues on your starters, that the traditional jumper cables and booster caps or booster packs at the installed battery in the vehicle. Sometimes those cable lengths are just too lengthy to really get you all the power that you need to have your best shot at getting your vehicles to start up. Thanks for watching. This is the last item that I forgot to mention in the previous part of the video, but basically we've got this short little cable that you can clip onto the starter, and let's say you have a booster pack, you can easily clip at the end of this 2-gauge wire. But if you want to give some aid to the booster pack when you're jumping a super heavy load like a diesel engine, what you can do is you can get a set of booster cables that go to the battery on the vehicle, and you can clip them also at the same point. So now when you're trying to start the starter and feed the starter on those points right there, not only do you get the booster pack delivering power at the end of this cable, but you also get a jumper cable with a battery at the end of it that gives you a little bit more additional power to go to the starter. In some cases, maybe the cabling that's in the truck, you've got a bad, let's say, positive wire going down to the starter in the cold weather, and so you're fighting that problem. So by clipping on this little short cable onto the starter, of course the black wire goes to the ground next to the starter. If there's a ground nut or bolt on the starter, you can put it on there, and then the red would go on the solenoid heavy power feed near the starter, and then when you turn on the ignition, you're going to have a lot of power delivery right into the starter. Yeah, that red clip does not go directly onto the starter to make it turn over. It's got to be gated through the solenoid starter to carry that large current through when you're enabling the start. So anyway, this little short cable allows you to connect the booster on the end and then run in parallel. New set of jumper wires from fresh batteries that are sitting inside your vehicle to hopefully give you even a better shot, more than just the booster pack if needed. Thanks again.